Welcome back to the program. Red Robinson and the Diner coming up in just a few minutes. Our final segment with Joe Murphy and Brian Brook from Murphy Battista LLP, personal injury lawyers here in Vancouver, downtown at 650 West Georgia Street, and online at murphybatista.com. And Battista, by the way, is BATTISTA.com. Quite an interesting go-around there on the matter of disability insurance just before we took the break, Joe and Brian. So based on your low esteem for the disability insurance business, both of you, and I'll give you each a crack at this one, is disability insurance therefore really worth it? Joe, we'll start with you.
Well, Sterling, unless someone can afford to support themselves and their family out of their finances without a paycheck coming in, they need this coverage. So it's been called peace of mind insurance by some judges because you buy it so that you've got the peace of mind that if something happens and you can't work, your family's going to have financial support coming in so you can feed your kids and take care of your family.
Right. I get the peace of mind argument completely. But given the lengthy description the two of you have had about the resistance offered by disability insurers to policyholders and claims, Brian, I gather that maybe you're not 100% on side with Joe on this one.
You know, I just, based on my years working in the industry, I think disability insurers by large are a bunch of shysters and bastards. I think they're there to essentially rip people off, to take their money up front and come up with any excuse or strategy in the book, and even really, really creative stuff to try to screw people out of their entitlement to disability benefits. And it's the entire way these companies deal with the claims seems really geared to depriving people of their entitlement to benefits. And I mean, if you want to get a lawyer's blood pressure up, just start talking about disability insurers.
Well, it was certainly quite a wonderful observation I had listening, just watching you two just boil right up. I mentioned disability insurance, and my two guests sat up straight, bolt upright, and both had a lot of negative things to say.
Well, Sterling, there's a great tragedy in taking someone who's bought a coverage, faithfully paid the premiums.
Absolutely, the peace of mind thing.
Finally needs the help because there's not a paycheck coming in, and they get treated so unfairly. The dishonesty in the cases that we see coming in the door is shocking.
Right.
No one should be allowed to treat people that dishonestly. But disability insurers on the cases we see walking in the door are so bad. They'll tell people, we've got a report from your doctor and it doesn't support your disability, but we can't show you the report. Or in one case they said to the person, we're going to send you to our doctor, and they did, but they said to the doctor, don't tell us whether or not she can work or not. We don't want your opinion on that. We just want you to address these issues, because they didn't want the doctor to come back and say, this woman can't work. And in fact, the doctor's report didn't specifically say that, but if you read the report, that's clearly what he said.
Now, if you had a chance, you could cross-examine that doctor and get the truth out of him.
We didn't need to, because you just had to read the report to understand what he was saying, but they said specifically, doctor, we don't want you to comment on that.
Interesting.
That's for us to decide, not you.
Okay, so we'll put a huge question mark after the whole matter of disability insurance. And I'm being quite kind, aren't I? Let's move on, because we only have a very few minutes left, and I wanted to include at least a brief conversation about life insurance. We've really gone around the whole insurance industry in the past hour, and I do appreciate your patience on that matter. But life insurance, again, Joe, you're a guy who believes in insurance, so obviously life insurance matters.
Sterling, I'm a great believer in what's called term life insurance.
Okay.
So if I'm young and I have 2 or 3 little kids, I'm going to get the best insurance coverage if I go out and buy term life insurance. And it's just straight insurance for a fixed period of time.
Right.
I'm not going to buy an insurance product that has a savings element to it, because that costs me more. And if it's a young family, what they need is not an investment vehicle. They need coverage.
Okay, what if, flip the coin, what if you're an older person who's just coming off a work cycle. They've just retired. So all of those corporate insurance coverages go away. And now this person is looking for some kind of life insurance. Does the term thing apply to that individual as well?
It could well do that, but you have to look at what's the purpose of life insurance. If you're 65 and retiring and your kids are all grown and gone,
Right.
why do you need life insurance? What do you need that money for? Some people say, well, this provides cash for your estate, and there might be an advantage in that where you don't have to turn around and sell everything. If there are debts that could be paid, then life insurance is worthwhile.
Right.
But you'd have to say, why do I need this? I used to have disability insurance, but I let that policy. I had a number of policies, and I quit that insurance about 5 years ago because I didn't need it anymore.
Okay.
So the thing to look at is when you're young and you have children, you need lots of life insurance. But as you get older, your need for life insurance dwindles and I think ends unless there's a good financial reason. Same with disability insurance.
Brian, I want to ask you about a case involving one of your colleagues at Murphy Battista who was out on the program a few months ago. Young guy, Kevin, who had just had his first little girl. So he's a proud papa, and he's doing the right thing. He's off to the insurance broker. He's going to change his insurance and take care of his little girl. So he sits down. The broker has the interview. The coverage questionnaire gets taken up. He goes through all the questions. One of the questions, and the broker just sits there. Do you do this? Have you done that? How's your health insurance? Do you smoke? Do you whatever? So he goes through the questionnaire, and one of the questions was, do you smoke? And Kevin says, no. And then the next question, and then he hands him the questionnaire at the end of the thing. Sign here, and we'll get you covered tomorrow. So Kevin, being a lawyer, looks through the questionnaire that he's just been given. And the question he was asked was, do you smoke? And he said, no, I don't. And then he was moved on to the next question. Well, he, the lawyer, read the question. That wasn't the question, Brian. The question was, have you ever smoked?
Yeah.
And that's a whole different ballgame. If he had said yes, or I'm sorry, no to the do you smoke question, and something had come up where there was a claim and that question came up in examination, and he'd smoked when he was in college, and who didn't? Is that claim void? Is the coverage void?
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. You want to be really, really honest. Life insurance is the idea is that it's a contract where it has to be of utmost good faith. Okay. Both the person who's buying insurance and the insurance company both have to treat each other fairly.
Right.
They have to be upfront and honest.
Okay.
Because when you're buying something like life insurance, the insurer needs to know the risks that they're buying into, as much as you need to understand what you're purchasing.
But the breakdown there wasn't the insurance company. It was the agent who had misinterpreted the insurance company's question.
Oh, I hear you.
Wow. So, the insurance company, they asked the right question. The agent didn't.
Absolutely.
So what happens to the guy then, the alleged insured?
There's a real dilemma because if he dies 5 years later, the insurance agent is going to say, no, I asked him the question as it was written on the form.
Sure, of course.
Kevin's dead. So what happens? That becomes very awkward, and if the family doesn't get the life insurance they need, then it's really tragic. So he was wise to say, let me read this form before I sign it.
So again, to anyone listening, and we all buy insurance, we do it, and we do it with cars, we do it with every year. We buy home insurance or tenants insurance. We buy insurance, like it or lump it, every blinking year. So if you're going to be a life insurance purchasing kind of human being, for goodness sake, take the time to understand the details, Brian, about what you're buying, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so there's no such thing as a dumb question when you're talking to an insurance broker, is there?
No, I mean, ideally, even before you purchase the insurance, you get a copy of the policy to make sure you understand what your obligations and rights are underneath it or beneath it. That way you can sort of shop back and forth between products that may or may not be appropriate for you. But yeah, be honest, be careful, take your time, shop around.
Right. And if you're not comfortable, Joe, and here's something that is worth mentioning too, if you're not comfortable with the way you're being treated by the agent and you don't feel that, this is going well, don't sign anything. Go find yourself another agent, right?
Yeah, I don't. I don't think people understand, Sterling, how important it is to have a good insurance agent, because they're the ones that are supposed to be interpreting these things for you. They're the ones that are supposed to be explaining what your choices are.
Right.
And they're the ones that you're relying on to ask you the proper question. Have you ever smoked?
Mm-hmm.
So, and people, I think tend to think buying insurance is like buying a loaf of bread. You just go in and say, I want a loaf of bread, and they say, here it is. But there are differences, and the key is having a really good insurance agent.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that consumers need to bear in mind too is that often the people who are selling you the insurance, particularly life insurance and disability insurance, get a huge premium from selling that policy to you.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure it's the right fit and that you're appropriately educated and advised may sometimes take a secondary role to the commission that's looming front and center in front
Absolutely. Good information. Excellent advice, as always. Great to have you come by this morning, Joe Murphy and Brian Brook from Murphy Battista LLP. You can check them out online at murphybattista.com. They're downtown at 650 West Georgia in Vancouver. That's this episode of The Law Show here on AM 650. The Diner with the Redhead, coming right up.